y'all, it is Nikki, and today's video is all about honesty, just laying it out there, being totally transparent, because this past month of writing has not gone the way that I wanted it to, and it is totally my fault. Confession time! So it's Camp Nano, which again, if you're not familiar with, is basically just like an online writer event that motivates writers to be super productive in a certain month. July is always Camp NaNoWriMo, and National Novel Writing Month officially is always the month of November. I think there's another Camp Nano event that happens in April. Some people choose to go big or go home and try to write an entire novel in a month. Other people will set like a word goal and keep track of it on the NaNoWriMo website. I did a little bit of both. Confession number one, I totally changed my goal. Initially, and in one of my last goals videos, I mentioned that my goal for NaNoWriMo was to have a complete draft of the project that I'm currently calling Operation Fantasy Revamp. I was very excited about this goal until Camp Nano got closer and closer, and I realized that having an entire draft of a story that was 400 pages long in its last draft is pretty unrealistic. So instead of switching halfway through the month, I switched my goal beforehand so I don't feel as bad about myself and went for the more realistic, more attainable 50,000 word goal instead. And I actually am on track. It was slow going at the beginning, but I just passed the halfway mark in the month, and I'm also just a little bit over 25,000 words. So I think that I actually can meet the 50,000 word goal. I'm not sure where it'll leave me in the story when the month ends, but I do know that wherever that is, it will be nowhere near the end of the story. A little disheartening, but what can I do? I'm running out of time here. Confession number two, I did the worst possible thing that a writer can do when they're trying to be disciplined and productive. I got into a show, and I got into a really great book series, and the distractions are becoming a problem. For some reason, this past month, maybe because motivation hasn't been as high as I wanted it to be, I've just been so weak, and there's been so much time that I've spent on the distractions instead of on writing, which I do feel bad about in the sense that there's a lot more words that I could have put on the page if I'd been super disciplined with myself and took all that time and spent it just in front of my computer writing. But at the same time, like, I also need to live. So I'm cutting myself a little bit of slack, but I did feel like it needed to be included in the list of confessions. That said, I have been writing every single day. I don't think there's been a single day, if there has, it's happened very, very few times, that I've written less than 1,500 words in a day. I'm trying to get 2,000 a day. That is my sort of mental goal, which I'm very thankful for. I give all praise to God for that, for just keeping me motivated enough to keep that going. I'm also thankful for the NaNoWriMo website because they know how to motivate you. As you update your word count, you get these little like virtual badges to make you feel good about yourself, like, yay, you wrote every day this week, or yay, you reached 25,000 words. And for some reason, those little badges hold so much power, and I feel like part of the reason that I do log my word count every day and don't forget is because I don't want to break my badge streak on the NaNoWriMo website. Thank you, NaNoWriMo people, for that. Confession number three, I need all the motivation I can get this month because for some reason, I am just not feeling it. I was so excited about this project in the whole lead up to the month. I even waited until the first day of July to start writing, even though I was itching to get into it. I forced myself to spend the weeks up to NaNoWriMo planning and outlining and trying to tighten up any loose ends that I still wasn't sure about so that when the month came around, I could just buckle down and write. I was clearly very excited about it, and I thought it was going to go really smoothly. My prologue actually did go smoothly. I think that was a little bit of a God hug because he knew that I would need that excitement and motivation to get me through the dry spell that was to come. Because after that, maybe because I was rewriting things that I had already rewritten so many times, my heart just wasn't in it, and I sort of lost that excitement that I had going into NaNoWriMo. Most of my excitement about this Camp Nano project was tackling this old project that I've had forever in a totally fresh way, with new eyes, new rules for how the world could work, new backstory, new world building details. There was so much newness and so many ideas bouncing around in my head that I was just so pumped to get started. And I think that is the reason for that dry spell. the thing that I was most happy with in my past draft was the beginning of the story. So for the past month, I've been working through the beginning again and using a lot of the ideas and the core stuff that was already in the past draft. So there wasn't as much newness as I would have liked other than the prologue. On which topic? I've considered not calling it a prologue. Right now, I just call it Chapter 1, because I know that some people are prologue skippers, which I do not understand. If the prologue is there, that means there's important stuff in it that the author wanted you to know, but not judging. Do you guys think I should call it a prologue? Should I call it Chapter 1? Should I call it Chapter 0? I was talking to one of my writer friends recently and she had that suggestion. Confession number 4. After all that hard work I did, I have barely looked at my outline once, which sounds ridiculous. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Nikki, why put all that time into making an outline and into making scene cards, which video you can watch either in the link below or at the end of this video, if you're not going to use them? And I agree, it does sound stupid, and that's why I'm disappointed with myself. The fact is, I'm not a pantser, but I'm not like a hardcore plotter either. I'm a little bit lackadaisical that way. I'm more of a memorizer. So when I make an outline, I usually do it a gajillion times. I'll write it out again and again and again so that it's just like internalized and I know the direction that the story is going to take, but I leave myself enough flexibility to change my mind and to move things around and to decide when I get to it in writing what I want to happen next, even if that's against the outline. For example, when I reach the end of one chapter or one POV and I want to start another one, sometimes my outline will say, okay, now you need to switch to this person. But while I'm there staring at the computer, it's like, you know, we haven't heard from character X for a while. Maybe we should go to her instead. Because I know myself. If I allowed myself to just totally be dedicated to an outline, it would sort of trip me up and I would lose my flexibility. I think it would keep me from seeing the potential directions that a story could take because I would just be so stressed about totally following the outline that I'd made for myself. But because it's a confession, I should also say that that all sounds really good, flexibility and everything, but most of the reason that I haven't used my outline is probably because it was in a notebook in my room and most of my writing happens on the other side of the house. So could I have got up and got my notebook and looked at my outline? Yes. I do want to clarify that just because I haven't looked at my outline very much doesn't mean that it was useless. Like I said, I am a memorizer. So working through the outline, making the scene cards, even though I wasn't strictly following them this month, they helped me to flesh out my story. So perfect system? No, not perfect at all. Things do get missed and things do get forgotten, but I think the flexibility that it gives me makes it worth it. Confession number 5. If there are any editors watching, please forgive me. I have done some cutting and pasting from my last draft. I know, it's bad, and I didn't want to do that. I know, even before I started this project, even before I started planning Camp Nano, I knew that when I wrote the next draft of this project, I didn't want to rely on the last one. I didn't want to just edit the wording of the last one like I've done so many times before. I wanted it to be totally new and fresh, and I even talked about that in a past video, but there were times while I was writing, when I was writing a scene that had already been written in the past draft, where I just felt like, I hate this. This is bad. I liked it better in the draft before. Despite all my good intentions, I ended up sneaking over to the other tab, grabbing a few paragraphs, and pasting them into my current draft. They did get edited. Whenever I dropped something in, I would read it over and change things and change wordings to make it fit and be seamless with the stuff that I'm writing right now. But it did happen. I can't pretend it didn't. Here's the thing, like I said, the beginning was my favorite part of the last draft. So do I just change things for the sake of changing them if I had something that is fairly recent and I think is pretty good? It's debatable, and one thing that comforted me in the decision that I made was, prepare for a tangent, the Prince of Egypt stage musical. If I have any Prince of Egypt fans out there, shout out to the best DreamWorks animated film of all time. I love that movie. I love the soundtrack. It's great. But recently, they've made a stage version of it. So like a sort of Broadway-style musical, only not on Broadway. It's playing in England right now. And I want so badly to go see it, but that's not possible. Someday. Anyway, Stephen Schwartz who, I believe it was Stephen Schwartz, who composed the original, also composed the remake, and he revamped it, he added a bunch of new songs. But what's interesting is that for a lot of the old songs, actually most of them, when you compare the two versions, the old and the new, they're really not very different. The original soundtrack was epic, and so I was nervous when I started listening to the new one that he would have just changed things for no reason. But he didn't. He actually kept them like pretty much exactly the same, which goes to show that if you have something good that you really like and that doesn't really need to be changed, do you have to change it in the new draft? Probably just trying to justify a heinous writing crime. And if that is the case, don't go by my example. Don't edit, rewrite. That's something I saw on Pinterest once. So take that advice. I'm sure they know what they're talking about more than I do. But I used the cut and paste function as sparingly as possible, and I'm pretty sure the world is not going to spontaneously combust because I borrowed a few parts from my last draft for this one. So those are my writing confessions for Camp Nano of July 2021. All in all, I am just thanking the Lord for the progress that I have been able to make. I'm thanking him that I am still on track as far as my word count goes to actually meet my goal. He's been using this summer and this month to remind me that all I can do is my best and the rest is up to him, which, wow, is so reassuring. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and that your Camp Nanos are going swimmingly. Please feel free to like and subscribe because that would just make my day, and do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.